Gulf Coast Wrestling of Louisiana presents Spring in the Ring, live April 28th at the Amelia Recreation Center in Amelia, Louisiana. For more ticket information, call 985-518-0433 or visit our brand new website, gcw-gulfcoastwrestling.com.
What's up, everyone? I'm the Friday Night Renegade, and you're watching WGS-TV.
Welcome to another installment of WGS-TV right here on youtube.com/WrestleGamer. I'm Doug Beverly Boudreaux. WWE.com has a new article up detailing, well, it's a list, and it's their top 25 most devastating submission holds. I guess maybe to kind of maybe push over the fact of Daniel Bryan being a submission specialist, CM Punk as well. So whatever the reason may be, I want to go ahead and go. I have the list right here, and I want to go ahead and go over this list and kind of give you my thoughts on quite a few of them, if you guys are willing. They start off with number 25 with the submission move made famous by Gory Guerrero, the Gory Special. We've seen over the years Eddie Guerrero and Chavo Guerrero kind of use the Gory Special, bring it back, and of course Chavo had a variation of the Gory Special in the Gory Bomb. But I think the Gory Special deserves a spot on the list, whether it's at the bottom of the list, the middle, it doesn't matter. It deserves a spot on this list. Number 24 is the Big Show's variation of the Camel Clutch called the Colossal Clutch. They brought this out, if I can remember this correctly, due to the fact of it was right around the feud that Big Show was having with John Cena. And of course the big hype was, I think if I remember correctly, it was a submissions only match, I believe. And they really wanted Big Show to at least have one submission move. He wasn't really a submission type wrestler, so they told him, go with the Camel Clutch. And with his size and his girth at the time, he had a particularly devastating variation of the Camel Clutch, and they went ahead and called it the Colossal Clutch. And he doesn't really use it anymore, probably for some obvious reasons. So I don't know why they decided to put this on the list, even though it was a really devastating hold that we've seen in the past. He really doesn't use it now anymore. So number 23 is the Vice Grip, and a lot of people will know that it's most noted nowadays as the submission hold of choice for the Great Khali. Another person has also made use of the Vice Grip in the past in the WWE, and that's Bryan Adams, when he was known as Crush. And he used that Vice Grip to gain a lot of his wins. I'm talking about, face crush, babyface crush. I'm not talking about the heel crush with the Nation of Domination. He used the heart punch around that area. But when he was the babyface crush, he used the Vice Grip to gain his wins, gain his submission wins. So I can see why the Vice Grip would be a part of this list as well. Number 22 is a Regal stretch, for obvious reasons. William Regal's submission hold of choice. He is basically, we want to see a lot of, we haven't seen really a lot of good signature moves out of William Regal, even though he is a really good performer in the ring. We've never really seen a basic finishing move, a basic signature move, and the only one we've really seen from William Regal is the Regal stretch submission hold. So I think it really deserves its spot in the list too. Number 21 is and is not a submission hold, and I'm talking about one of the submission moves. Well, I'll say submission moves, or moves rather, of the Japanese buzzsaw Tajiri, Yoshihiro Tajiri, and I'm talking about the Tarantula. Now, the reason why I say it is and is not a submission hold, because he did apply the maneuvers in the WWE, but considering the fact that the use of the Tarantula required that the opponent be dangling in the ropes, you really couldn't gain a submission victory in the WWE. Because when you're in the ropes, that constitutes a breakup. You can't gain a submission hold or submission victory rather while your opponent's tangled in the ropes. So I can see why the devastating effects of the tarantula. That could really what really earned its spot in the list. Then again, like I said, it's also not a submission hold because even though Tajiri frequently used the tarantula, he never gained a submission victory using this hold. Number 20 is the Dragon Sleeper. Most noted person who used the Dragon Sleeper was the Ultimo Dragon. He brought it out in WCW, a particularly devastating submission hold. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, one, why are you watching my video in the first place? And secondly, what it is it looks like he's going to go for a reverse DDT, but he just holds on to it like an inverted headlock in a sense, and that kind of turns into a Dragon Sleeper. Other people who've used it in the past that I've seen the late great Owen Hart make use of it. I've seen Dan the Beast Severn use it. I'm trying to think of other people who have used it besides those three names that you've heard me say: Ultimo Dragon, Dan the Beast Severn, and the late great Owen Hart. But I know people in the UFC, MMA fighters, they kind of use the Dragon Sleeper, but not to the point where the WWE uses it. So I can understand the Dragon Sleeper. I kind of agree with that being on the list. Number 19 belongs to the man of 1,000 holds, Dean Malenko, and the hold that he made famous in WCW. I'm talking about the Texas Cloverleaf. He used that submission hold a lot in the WCW to earn, especially a lot of his WCW Cruiserweight Championship victories and his title defenses. He really used that submission hold to gain it. It's a variation of the Sharpshooter in a sense. Well, he doesn't do the step over. He doesn't tangle his legs up. He just, tangles his own opponents almost like an inverted figure four, and then turns him on his back or his stomach rather, and applies some pressure like a Sharpshooter. So I agree. Texas Cloverleaf being in there. Number 18, believe it or not, belongs to Brock Lesnar in the Brock Lock. Again, this is another weird submission hold that we saw only for a little bit. But we don't see it nowadays anymore. We don't see anyone else with a variation of it. And the Brock Lock, it was basically Lesnar draping his opponent's leg over his neck, and I guess kind of picking him up in a sense. And he used it for a little while around the 2002-2003 era, but you don't see anybody else using it because I think it requires a lot of strength for the guy to actually lift them up in the submission hold and kind of hold them there until the opponent either taps or something else happens. So Brock Lock, I'm on the fence about, to be honest with you. I'm really on the fence about it. Number 17 is the Claw. Now, WWE.com, when they made mention of the Claw, or when you read the article about it, the person that they most notably associate this move with is Lord Tensai. However, I think that's a slap in the face to the Claw. If you want to have the Claw on the list, then you really need to, the person's photos who you need to have up on there are guys like the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, David Von Erich, Kevin Von Erich, the guy who originated it back in the day, Fritz Von Erich, the Von Erich family. That's the name that's most, I firmly believe, is associated with the Claw, because they're the ones who used it all the time back in the day, especially the Von Erich family. Now, I know there's been other people who have used their own variations of the Claw. I know Barry Windham had a version of the Claw. I know that it was one of the Blackjacks. It might have been Blackjack Mulligan who had a variation on the Claw as well. But it is a very unique submission hold. It's very easy to do. And I can understand why WWE would try to implement the Claw with Lord Tensai with his upper body strength. it would make it very devastating for his opponents. Number 16 is a very common submission hold that we've seen a lot of people use as a signature move, and I'm talking about the sleeper hold. And we've seen a lot of the greats in the past used it. Dusty Rhodes used it in his NWA eras. It had a unique name to it. I don't want to say label lock because that's a totally different thing, but I know that it had its own name when Dusty Rhodes used it. It was something lock, but I can't really remember off the top of my head. But we've also seen guys like Roddy Piper implement the sleeper hold. Brutus the Barber Beefcake also implement the sleeper hold. And just recently, Dolph Ziggler, well, I'll say just recently, but Dolph Ziggler has kind of brought it back as a signature move of sorts in his arsenal, along with the zigzag and whatnot. But the super hold has been used, and I kind of agree with the fact that they have this on here because not only is it a very generally used submission hold in the world of professional wrestling, it's a very successful submission hold, and people tend to use it. So I definitely agree with the super hold in the list. Number 15 belongs to the total package Lex Luger in the form of the Human Torture Rack. That's a unique submission hold, normally reserved for guys who are very well built, very muscular, very powerful. Guys like Lex Luger. I know that Abyss, even though he doesn't use it as a submission hold, he kind of has a variation of it, with the shock treatment. He starts out with the torture rack and then he just drops straight down to give that jolt into the body. But the torture rack was the favorite submission hold of Lex Luger at the time. It was a unique submission hold. He's the one who widely used it the most. I can't think of anybody else who's used the Human Torture Rack before him or after him. But, when you think Human Torture Rack, the name that you most associate that submission hold with is Lex Luger. So, I kind of agree with that. And you want to talk about another submission hold unique to one particular individual, and I'm talking about number 14, the number 14 spot belonging to Taz in the form of the Katsuhat Samai. I know I screwed up that name. But it's the Taz mission, basically. I know I'm probably going to get people making comments like, you fucked up the name. I do apologize about that. Well, it had a Japanese or judo-style name to it when he used it in ECW, and then when he brought it out in 2000 to the WWE, they cut out that Japanese name, and they started to, just flat out call it the Taz mission. That basically that sleeper variation where it kind of looks like the guy's being choked out. Very effective hold. That's what Taz used a lot, primarily to gain his submission victories. Either his opponents would tap or they would pass out. But that's what Taz primarily used throughout his career. When he was Taz, not when he was the Taz Maniac, but when he was Taz, he kind of used that. Anyway, number 13. Oh, excuse me. Number 13 belongs to CM Punk in the form of the Anaconda Vice. The Anaconda Vice was to me, it was a unique submission hold as well. It's one I've never seen before until CM Punk brought it out in his debut in ECW. A very unique hold, kind of like a ground version of a key lock when you have your arm up here, and it almost looks like, in a sense, where CM Punk is holding the arm in position, it almost looks like you're being choked out in the same way. A very painful submission hold, and CM Punk still uses it quite a bit when he can't use the go to sleep. Like thinking back to WrestleMania 28, he used the Anaconda Vice to gain the submission victory over Chris Jericho. So number 12 belongs to Mankind. AKA Dude Love, AKA Cactus Jack, AKA Mick Foley, AKA I can't think of any more AKAs. In the form of the Mandible Claw. Now, you want to talk about unique submission holds. And there was one other person, because I remember when I was first watching Mankind in the WWE around 97, that Jim Ross made mention of a certain guy. It was a doctor guy. It wasn't Dr. Death Steve Williams. It was another guy who used the mandible claw. I can't really. That's another name. I should have done my homework. I should have had those names ready for you guys, but I just want to make sure that you guys get these references that I'm talking about. But that too was a unique submission hold in its day, because never before, at that time, have we seen a submission hold where it require that these fingers here go in the mouth of your opponent. It's a submission hold that's really not used by anybody else other than mankind. I'm trying to be kind about it, if you guys kind of get what I'm saying. But later on in the years, in the latter part of the years, he replaced the form of the mandible claw with Mr. Socko, and basically it was a sock going in the mouth. Yuck. Number 11 is a submission hold that's commonly used with the well-built, the powerful, physical wrestlers, and it's the full Nelson. And I can think of a lot of names in the past that have used the full Nelson. Billy Jack Haynes, Hercules Hernandez, the Equalizer, Dave Sullivan, if I remember if that's his name. They had him pegged as Kevin Sullivan's brother at the time, but he was known as the Equalizer, and he always used the full Nelson. And another person who's also used it was the Masterpiece, Chris Masters, and his variation on it called the Master Lock, if you guys remember that. But it was a very commonly used submission hold for very strong, very well-built wrestlers, so it does earn its place. Now, number 10 is, just like we had with the Colossal Clutch, now we have the original here at number 10, the Camel Clutch, the Iron Sheik's move, a move also invented by the original Sheik, the Camel Clutch. A very powerful move. And another wrestler who had it is a variation of the Camel Clutch, other than the Big Show. It was Scott Steiner, and when he uses it, it's called the Steiner Recliner. A very painful submission hold, and I know up to this date, I'm the person who used it, the Sultan who's used it, aka Rikishi, and a person who uses it now is Jinder Mahal. That's his signature move of choice, is the Camel Clutch, I guess, to pay homage to the Sheik. But I can understand that. Number 9 is formerly known as the LaBelle Lock. It's now called the Yes Lock. It's the primary submission hold of Daniel Bryan. It's what he's used to gain all of his submission victories. A very painful version of the crippler crossface, in a sense, is what the LaBelle Lock is. Instead of holding the opponent's arm out straight, they twist it, and then they go into the crossface to go for the submission, and that's what Daniel Bryan has used. And I guess now to tie into his yes, yes, yes gimmick, they're changing the name of his move from the LaBelle Lock, again originated by Gene LaBelle, to the Yes Lock, I guess, to tie in with the gimmick. So, number 8 was the submission hold made famous by, of course, the one and only Nature Boy Ric Flair. I know there are a lot of other people have used it over the years, like Tito Santana, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, I believe, has used it as well. Greg the Hammer Valentine has used it, and I'm talking about the figure 4 leg lock, a submission hold that is very widely known, very widely associated with Nature Boy Ric Flair. I know that the guys like Greg the Hammer Valentine and Nature Boy Buddy Rogers and Tito Santana, when they used it quite effectively as well. But when most people think today, in order to professional wrestling, who do you associate the figure 4 leg lock with? The first name that comes to mind, Nature Boy Ric Flair. Number 7 was a move that was originated. I want to say originated because he's the person I first started seeing him use this submission hold, and that's Bob Backlund, and that's the Crossface Chickenwing. He was introduced when they first debuted his crazy heel persona, and especially with the feud he had with Bret the Hitman Hart over the WWE Championship. I have seen Sean Waltman, aka Six, aka Xbox, aka China's Bitch, have a variation on it called the Buzz Killer, which is basically the same thing. So I can understand WWE.com putting this in here. Number 6 is Chris Jericho's variation of the Boston Crab called the Walls of Jericho. Now a lot of people are saying, different variation. It is the traditional Boston Crab. That's what it is. I'm surprised they didn't put the Lion Tamer in here, because that was the unique variation. But when Jericho uses the traditional Boston Crab, which was made, a lot of people have used it. And when you think about the name I most associate the Boston Crab with is the model Rick Martel. He used that a lot in his career. In his career, to gain a lot of his victories. That was his signature move of choice. When Chris Jericho brought it out in WCW, it was called the Lion Tamer. And I guess maybe when WWE brought it into the WWE, they really didn't like his variation, the Lion Tamer of the Boston Crab, and they asked him to do, the traditional Boston Crab, and they gave it the name of the Walls of Jericho. Number 5 is belongs to the $1 Million Man, the Hall of Famer $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, in the form of the $1 Million Dream. His variation of the Cobra Clutch / Sleeper Hold, in a sense. $1 Million, that was his move of choice. I know Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he was, employed with the $1 Million Man around 96, he had that variation of the hold. I know Ted DiBiase's variation of the hold is the $1 Million Dream Russian leg sweep. I'm trying to remember. Dream Street is what it's called. Dream Street. That was the name of it. But the $1 Million Dream deserves its spot on this list. So I kind of agree with that placement as well. Number 4 is the ankle lock. I first saw the ankle lock being widely used with Ken Shamrock, but now it went on to guys like the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, and in the WWE now, the guy who uses it the most is Jack Swagger. The All-American, American who needs to learn how to talk without sticking out his tongue. Jack Swagger. He's the guy who uses it in the WWE, but Kurt Angle, he still uses it as his primary submission hold in the TNA. And it's kind of really hard to say, who do you widely associate the ankle lock with? Because the two bigger names that stick out to me when you want to associate the ankle lock with is 1, Ken Shamrock, and 2, Kurt Angle. Those are the two bigger names that I kind of associate the ankle lock with. Number 3 is the STF. It was widely called the STFU for a sense, but then WWE went PG, and the spot kind of belongs to John Cena. But it's a move that other wrestlers have used. I know, in particular, one wrestler who, back in the day, if I can learn how to speak properly, who used the STF was Eric Watts. And he used it a lot in the WCW, early WCW days. I'm talking about early 90s WCW days. And that was his signature move, his submission move of choice, was the step over into a crossface, otherwise known as the STF. Number 2 is the submission hold made famous by The Undertaker in the form of the Hell's Gate. A variation of a chokehold hold. It's a variation of the triangle choke. Undertaker has used it, and I think the Undertaker's the only one I can think of who's widely used this triangle choke, otherwise known as the Hell's Gate in the WWE. But it's a submission hold that's he's used to gain quite a bit of victories when he's not using the tombstone or the choke slam. He's using the Hell's Gates. And number 1, I guess to pay homage to the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, it's the Sharpshooter. Made famous by 2 guys, the 2 main guys who have used, when you want to think the Sharpshooter or the Scorpion, is Sting and Bret the Hitman Hart, because both men have used it. Those are the 2 bigger names who have used this particular submission hold. Whether you call it the Sharpshooter or the Scorpion, it's still basically the same submission hold. I know other guys have used it, guys like the late Chris Benoit, The Rock has used it, even though he really didn't use it all to properly and successfully at WrestleMania 28. I know the late great Owen Hart has used the Sharpshooter. So when properly applied, it was a painfully applied submission hold, and a lot of people use it to gain their submission style victories. So this top 25 list is a very unique list, to say the least. I know there are a few submission holds in here that I would have liked to have seen in here that didn't make it in here for obvious reasons. WWE don't want to be associated with Chris Benoit, but if I wanted to put a submission hold in there, I would have to put the Crippler Crossface. The Crippler Crossface deserves a spot in there, but of course WWE doesn't want to be associated with Chris Benoit because of what happened. So the Brock Lock I wouldn't put in here. The Brock Lock I would not put in here. It's basically a ridiculous submission hold. Tarantula, I'm still on the fence about that. The Tarantula, I really don't know if I would leave that in there. Other than that, I really see no issues with this list. So if you guys have any comments you would like to make on this, the top 25 the most devastating submission holds according to WWE.com, be sure you leave your comments in the comment section below or in the video response detailing your thoughts on this top 25 list. Don't forget to like and favorite this video, and don't forget, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to youtube.com/WrestleGamer. So with that being said, I'm Double B Billy Boudreaux saying thank you very much for watching.